sister. How are you?
Well, thank you. How are you?
Yeah, I'm very fine, and thank you for accepting the invitation.
Yeah, it's a
Uh,
pleasure. Pleasure to
yeah,
meet you.
yeah. The only common thing we share is we both practice some kind of yoga,
Yes.
which may be different to each other, but still it has yoga in it.
Yes, maybe we share more
Uh,
things than that. I don't know. Let's find out.
yeah, yeah. So this is the first time I'm speaking with this sister. Uh, Never spoke with her personally, even for more than a minute.
Yeah.
So it's going to be a friendly chat, casual chat. So whatever you are going to know about her, that's what I'm going to know about her as well. Uh, so uh, I believe you must be from a Christian background, right, sister?
Yeah, it's interesting. My mother
Hmm.
was a hippie because my
Okay.
name is Harmony,
Oh,
and she practiced some transcendental meditation, Maharishi Mahesh Yogi's transcendental meditation.
okay.
And so when I was born, she was kind of into new age spirituality, but
Hmm.
then she became a Christian, and but she
Hmm.
was also not very conventional. So
Okay.
she would go to many different churches, and so I
Hmm.
got to sample many different styles of Christianity.
Hmm.
And yeah, we spent a lot of time at an Anglican church and then an evangelical church. And eventually I did a degree in philosophy and then another degree in religious studies.
Okay.
And around that time when I was in university is when I uh, started to practice Buddhist meditation
Wow.
and then started to practice yoga.
Okay. So by hippie, do you mean your mother was the follower of Osho?
Not really the follower of Osho, more she was more into the transcendental meditation movement of the
Okay.
Maharishi Mahesh
Oh,
Yogi.
okay.
Yeah, like the Beatles, you know.
Oh, okay. So uh, she was not Christian initially. She became,
Initially, no, she became Christian, yeah, after I was
wow,
born.
okay. Mm. But by birth, everybody would be Christian in Western countries, right?
Probably the majority would be
Majority.
Christian or
Okay.
sometimes maybe Catholic or no religion or I don't know.
Oh,
Now we are very multicultural, so it's hard to
okay.
say. But
Okay.
yeah, typically, most Caucasian people come from European descendants, so we would be
Oh,
Christian by, heritage.
okay.
Yeah.
So how would you call yourself? Christian or Hindu or what?
Yeah, that's a good question. I'm not sure. I really
Mm,
call myself anything specific. I mean, I
okay.
guess
Mm,
I just consider myself spiritual.
okay. But most of what
Yeah.
you practice is from Hinduism, right?
Most of my practices, yes, are from either
Mm,
Buddhism or Hinduism.
Hinduism. Okay.
Yeah.
So you got attracted to this spirituality right from your childhood, or only after certain spark you got this?
I was attracted from early childhood. Like I said, my
Okay.
mom had an
Mm,
image of Sri Yantra
okay.
uh, up on a wall,
Mm,
and so I would often, as a very very young child, I have memories of staring at
oh,
Sri Yantra
okay.
and like going into this very expansive
Mm,
state. When you stare at the
wow.
yantra, it opens
Mm,
up.
mm,
So I think there was a seed planted at a young age. But
okay.
because we went to many different churches, I
Mm,
feel I had a very um, deep connection to God or
okay.
consciousness or energy. And
Mm,
then when I was in university studying religious studies, I mostly studied Buddhism and Hinduism
oh,
because I was also interested in Buddhist meditation and yoga at the time.
uh,
So that's what took me into more Eastern religion.
oh. So you're not attracted to Christianity at all?
I like some things about it, but I think because I grew up,
Mm,
in Sunday school and going to church
mm,
and having already a lot of knowledge about Christianity, I found it was a little disappointing somehow that maybe
oh,
the people were disappointing, or I just felt that the doctrines, the dogma, for me felt restrictive and confining, and it
oh,
didn't feel like it was including the whole picture. So I
okay.
expanded my view.
Okay, you don't like discrimination in Christianity.
Yeah, I don't like the discrimination. I don't
Okay.
think that these literal concepts of sin or heaven and hell, I like
Mm,
in India, there's no sin. There's things that move you
mm,
towards goodness or towards something that's
mm,
helpful for your evolution, your consciousness, or
okay.
things that separate you or move you away from,
Mm,
you know, integration, consciousness, harmony, unity. And so it's not considered, you know, it's not considered like so much of a sin that you need to then do penance for.
mm,
It's more just direction that you're going. And if you don't like your direction, you can make another choice
okay. You have multiple
in a way.
choices in Hinduism. So you don't like this.
Depends if it's all
Yeah,
determined or not. But anyway, that's another conversation.
that's true. So you are more into Buddhism or Hinduism?
I feel like I have a very healthy dose of both of them, but I
Okay.
like Buddhist meditation very much. I
Mm,
find Vipassana style meditation very
mm,
helpful for the mind. But my training in yoga was in Hatha yoga, pranayama, and
mm,
Ashtanga yoga. So
okay.
I have a lot of background in that particular training.
Okay. So what's your opinion about God?
That's my opinion about God.
Mm, mm,
Um, hmm. I guess for me, God is, uh, how would you say, ineffable. You cannot describe, but
okay.
uh, it is a type of consciousness that is the matrix or the foundation of all reality. And this consciousness, in its essence, is pure love. And as we move towards this pure love, then we move towards God. When we move towards division and hate, we move away from God, towards our ego, towards separateness.
Mm,
So to me, that is what God is this pure consciousness, which also is the embodiment of unconditional love.
wow, wow, wow. It's amazing. It's true, 100% true. So you do believe in God.
Yeah, I mean,
Mm.
it's hard when people ask that question because I don't know what God they're talking about. But yes, I do believe that we
uh,
are
okay.
interconnected, that we're
Mm,
in like interdependent,
okay.
that the sheer arising or meeting of people is
Mm,
a miracle, really. It's ordained or destined, or there's intelligence behind it. And so, do I believe that we're living in an intelligent and um, gracious universe? Yeah, I do.
okay. Because the reason I ask this question is if uh, someone is a Christian, if they have problem, they go to Jesus.
Hmm.
So whom do you go to when you have a problem?
Yeah, I go to Jesus. Sometimes I go to
Okay.
Ganesh.
Wow. Mm,
Sometimes I just try to
mm,
breathe and go to the breath, to prana.
okay.
So depends on the problem.
Yes, especially when you want to cry on someone's shoulder. So obviously,
Mm.
when we feel alone, we would automatically try to connect with God. So for
Yeah.
Christians, it's
Who do
easy.
you go to?
Uh,
Who do you go to?
obviously, God.
Which God?
Oh, you are interviewing me the same question so that you can get the idea of what I'm trying to say. Okay, I go to God Shiva.
Ah, yes,
God
Shiva.
Shiva.
When I was having my appendicitis, I was chanting very much to Shiva.
Okay. Om Namah Shivaya. That's what you're
Yes,
saying.
yes, and
Uh,
Triambakam Yajamahe.
okay. I just recently went through your videos in
Mm,
Facebook. So in one conversation, one brother was saying Ishwara. So does it mean Shiva
yeah.
or some other meaning?
Well, I think it depends on who is using that
Okay.
term Ishwara, but in the Yoga Sutras of Patanjali,
Okay.
Ishwara is described as Omkara,
Okay.
right? Is described as the pranavaha,
Okay.
so the vibration of Om.
Okay.
But often it's Shiva or Lord, and in sometimes some people refer to Ishvara more like a sovereign self. So like your highest
Okay.
self that is free.
Mm. But here
So
in
again,
Hinduism,
like God, it depends on the person who is speaking.
okay. Okay. Because people of Western religions and also atheists, they make fun of Hinduism by saying, if you pray to one God, he will definitely come to help you. But if you pray multiple gods, then one would think that other would help. So everybody will leave you. Although it's
Yeah,
funny to hear, but I think it's thought provoking, right?
it is thought provoking, but
Yeah.
I mean, what are all of these representations of God? What is
Mm,
Shiva? What is Ganesh? What is
mm,
Devi? What is Kali? What is
mm,
Jesus? What is
yeah,
Buddha? What are all these representations of God,
mm,
right? It's not, I mean, if God is limited
okay,
to one thing, to one name, to one image, to one religion, then God isn't God because God is being limited. So if God is infinite
okay,
and God is omniscient and omnipotent and no beginning and no end and is everything and nothing, then God encapsulates all of the things.
okay.
So how is God limited by name or form? You pray to Shiva, you're also praying to Jesus. If your heart is tuned to the essence of what God is, which is infinity, which is consciousness, there's only one.
Okay. But what do you think is the main difference between these three religions, Christianity, Buddhism, and Hinduism?
um, hmm. I mean, I could be wrong about God, but that's
Okay.
how I see it.
Okay. Okay, that's fine.
um, the
Mm,
main difference, I think, is just
mm,
orientation.
mm,
Um, I mean, with Buddhism and Hinduism, Hinduism, I feel God says that God is infinite and everything, Ananta, right?
okay.
And Buddhism says that there is no God because
Oh,
it's empty, it's
mm,
nothingness.
nothing left.
But to me, they're just the same way of describing that
Mm,
experience because
mm.
the infinite is also empty.
Yeah, even in Hinduism, they say Shiva is nothingness.
Yeah.
At the
So
same,
to me,
yeah,
it's the same, but just
okay,
a slightly different
totally
way of
different.
viewing it.
Okay. Uh,
And with Christianity, I think it gets very, um, I mean, like true Christianity in the Orthodox sense is very directed to Christ and Christ consciousness, and that being, Jesus said, I am the way, the truth, and the life. No one comes to the Father, God, except through me. Um, and that God is love, right? So, I mean, all of these principles are there, but I think in the Christianity, it's very limited in its orientation in that depending on one's perspective, they might say, oh, unless you believe in Jesus, you can never reach God.
Okay.
Which would be like someone saying, unless you believe in Shiva, you can never reach God.
Okay.
It's like, it's kind of limited, no?
So that's the main reason you're not inclined towards Christianity, right?
I would say, yeah. That's my main thing that I don't agree with is I feel like that's so contextual, depending on where you're born, depending on your exposure to different teachings or different people. You may have a good taste or a bad taste in your mouth about Christianity. You may have no taste in your mouth about Christianity.
Okay.
Maybe you never heard about Christianity. And then I think it calls into question, what about all the people who lived before Christ was born? Well, what about those people? Are they like in some strange limbo state, and then the Christians have a story to kind of like bring in these people, So I feel like I don't I get it, but also I feel like at some point it just turns into mythology and story. And if you want to believe in mythology and stories, that's fine. But to me, that doesn't have to do with the reality that we're living in and what God is or isn't,
What about Islam? You've been there?
I have been to the Middle East.
Okay.
To me, like Judaism and Islam and Christianity are all kind of, they're monotheistic religions, so they all have a very similar kind of orientation. They all come out of Judaism. They all come out of the desert tribes, so they all have a very similar orientation to, you have to believe in this particular doctrine or person. You have to read this particular book, or you have to have been born this particular, race, or not race, but like this particular ethnicity in order to be included. So to me, they feel very exclusive. And again, to me, God isn't exclusive. God is everything and everywhere and accessible to everyone. So I don't resonate so much with those traditions, although there are very beautiful things in each of those traditions that I do enjoy and love and, call into my practices in some ways.
So, you consider God to be omnipresent, right? He's present everywhere.
Yeah.
So that's the thing.
I feel like that's the thing. And no beginning and no end. I don't know. It kind of seems like the thing too.
In Hinduism, they say like that. He has no top, no bottom. He's pervading everywhere. It's in Srimad Bhagavad Gita. So it is from there. It's there. Even in Islam, in Quran, mostly people don't read verse by verse. That's why even Muslims they were not aware that Islam is also preaching Hinduism to a larger extent. It is there. They say no matter which direction you turn, there is no direction where Allah is not. He is there everywhere. It is there in Quran.
I think it's there in most of these religions. Even Judaism says you can never describe what God is. You can only describe what He is not, or what God is not. So it's very similar. Even in Christianity, in the beginning was God, and God was the Word, and the Word was, and it's all about the vibration and the energy and the, just this consciousness that's existing. When you get to sort of the heart of what is God, it's a great question, right? If you believe in God, what do you believe in?
So, what do you think is the difference between people of spirituality and non-spiritual people?
Maybe hope.
Hope. Wow. Single word and best answer. So, describe it.
I think when you are spiritually inclined, meaning that you have some belief in something greater than yourself, or a God, or a cosmic order, divine consciousness, or something along those lines, right? Like we're speaking about. That's, I think, sort of the embodiment of what it means to be spiritual, right? You believe in something beyond the body, beyond the mind, that is essence or spirit. Then I think hope and trust are a natural evolution of that. They're the natural byproducts of having that kind of belief system, because when things go wrong, you trust that it's happening because it's meant to happen, or it's happening for your good, or it's happening because it is the way that it needs to happen. And so you can be hopeful for a future. And so I think trust and hope are probably the most differences. If you don't have that belief in that everything's happening for a reason, because there's some kind of intelligent, consciousness at the foundation of all existence, then everything's random and there's no reason and there's no rhyme for anything. It's just chaos, or it's coincidence, or it's it's just kind of, there's a difference between looking at things and going upwards, or looking at things and going downwards. And so you don't have that trust that something has you, that something's holding you. You're alone. What has you? What's holding you? Money? Your body? Right? You're always putting your trust or your faith in things that are impermanent. Those things don't have you. They can't hold you. I mean, you might think they can, but they're impermanent. They can't, right? They're transient. And so it's very difficult. I think people fall into depression a lot easier and lose hope. I mean, what is depression? It's losing hope because you don't have faith or trust in anything. But when you have a viewpoint or a perspective that, the world and existence and people are good and beautiful, and, that God is there, that consciousness is supporting all things, then your trust is in something that is beyond what we can see. It's beyond you. It's beyond your temporary body. It's beyond your temporary possessions. It's beyond your bank account. It's infinite. So it opens up a whole future, whatever that future is. At least you have that trust or that faith or that hope, which I think helps concentrate the mind.
And do you believe in karma?
I do.
You do.
I think even people who don't believe in karma believe in karma.
That's true. Yeah. Even I heard that disbelievers of God thinks about God more than the believers.
Yeah. Maybe. I don't know.
Yeah, that's the thing. Because they are always they're not strong in their faith, because they see the proof right before their eyes that there is something operating at a higher level. So they are always confused, especially I love, you must have read Bible fully, right? Have you?
Yeah. Yeah, I have.
So in that story of Moses, where he pleads with one king called Pharaoh, so he is very hard-hearted. He would disbelieve God, but when something bad happens to him, he suddenly believes in God. But as soon as the matter gets normal, he again starts disbelieving God. So that's the nature of human mind, especially people of study. They're like that. And what do you think? Because some atheists ask that I see many atheists happy and many theists who believe in God very depressed, which is true, right?
I don't know. I'm
Mm.
not sure if that's true. I mean, I think we
Uh,
all get, we can all get depressed. But I
yes.
think when we're depressed, it's often
Mm.
because our nervous system or our point of view is being mm, narrowed or concentrated to the ego. We're very identified with ourselves.
Mm.
And so that might be we're stuck in a fight or flight response. Our nervous system is stuck in the sympathetic nervous system. And
Mm.
so our vision gets narrowed, our attachment to our bodies, to ourselves, to our lives, to what's happening, to the circumstances. We stop seeing possibilities. We stop being receptive or open to things around us because we're reacting and feeling attacked, right? We're not feeling safe. And I think
Mm.
as our nervous systems release and or unwind or relax and become more like, of course, they can be stimulated, but they keep coming back down into a normal state or into a parasympathetic state, into something that isn't activated or agitated. We feel safe, we can relax. And then our minds naturally start to open and see possibilities, think about other people, experience compassion, empathy. It's hard to be depressed when you're in that space.
Okay.
Depression and anxiety are very much a byproduct or a result of having a dysregulated or a nervous system that's stuck in one response, in one pattern.
Mm. So that has more to do with physicality than mentality.
I mean, everything is
Mm.
interdependent, so
Interdependent. Yeah, that's
you
right.
can't affect one without affecting the other, right? We know
Okay.
this. If you sit and you meditate,
Mm.
you feel a connection to your spirit or to your breath.
Mm.
Your mind starts to become calmer. Your body also becomes calmer. Your nervous system relaxes.
So
Yeah.
what's
But
the
also, you could
mm,
do that through your body too, right? You could practice yoga and move and breathe, and then
uh,
again, it changes, right? So you can't affect one thing without affecting all of it.
yeah, I've seen
Yeah.
you doing very difficult yoga postures. Yes, basically, I was wondering how is she doing that so
Yes.
easily. Yeah.
I trained very
Mm.
long for many
Oh,
years.
that's the thing.
But now I'm
Mm.
old and not as flexible as I used to be. So
Wow. Wow. But still, you are doing very great, sister.
yeah, thank you.
Okay. And um, what makes you believe in karma?
Hmm.
Because
Wow.
because many wrongdoers are enjoying their life while good people suffer. We can see them, right?
Yes, we can see
Uh,
that.
so it makes one believe that karma can be just an imagination.
Yeah, yeah, maybe. I don't know.
Mm.
I think everything
Mm.
has cause and effect. If in the
Mm.
physical world, everything
Mm.
has cause and effect, right? If
Yeah.
you touch one thing and move it, it touches another thing, right? It's just the chain
Mm.
reaction. And so I think
Mm.
scientifically we're very used to this idea of cause and effect, right? And the laws of physics. And karma to me is really just an extension of that cause and effect. And so maybe we don't see the exact effects of someone's actions, right? It might not be so obvious, like
Mm.
um, I steal from I steal from a bank and then I
Okay.
get hit by a car or something like that, right? It might
Okay.
not be so obvious, but maybe I steal from a bank and a part of me feels that disconnection inside and maybe that starts to grow a type of cancer. I don't know, right?
Mm.
And then also, as you know, in India, you bring in ideas of past lives and past
Yeah,
karmas and
that's not
prarabdha
that.
karma, like
Mm.
destiny. So we don't know. We don't see all of the things someone's bringing in to this life with them or going into the next life. And so I don't know whether you believe in past lives and future lives and reincarnation. I think what science has also showed us is that we do have epigenetics, and we do have patterns that we're receiving in our DNA that are from our parents and even our grandparents. And so these are ripple effects, right? That is karma also. So maybe, as an individual, maybe you are not going to experience the direct effects of that karma, but you are maybe potentially going to have descendants who might also experience the effects of that karma. So in some kind of weird roundabout way, it all comes back.
In Christianity, there's a faith that if you do some sin, as you say, even if you don't suffer, your descendants will suffer. Do you believe that?
I mean, I think, yeah, I do think that what we do affects our descendants.
So, is it justifiable that our descendants are punished for our sins?
Again, I don't think it's justifiable, but it seems like karma, right?
But that's the karma I did. Why should my kids or grandkids suffer for my karma?
Yeah, I don't know. Ask nature.
Yeah.
They're seeing this though, that these trauma imprints that
Mm,
are even our grandmother, say your grandmother, when
mm,
she was born, had the egg inside of her for your mother already.
mm,
And so what was happening in your grandmother when your mother, was conceived, not even conceived, but just that
okay.
egg was created,
Mm,
any karma or any, trauma, it's imprinting on our DNA. That's what they're discovering with epigenetics. And so then that is going to affect the way your mother is with you.
that's true.
And so, yeah, and that's going to affect the way you show up for people in your lives. And so we can change it, but also in India, they have all kinds of things that can help to uh, dis dis I was going to say dysregulate, but like could dismantle karma a little bit, right? So you can
Okay.
chant mantras, or you can do yoga, or you can meditate, and it starts to change
Mm,
some of your karma, right? You can burn up the karmic imprints, the samskaras, or weaken them.
mm,
And I mean, physically, when you think about it, that's kind of what you're doing when you start to take on more mindfulness practices like meditation or yoga or pranayama. And again, science is starting to prove this. You have those telomeres at the bottom of the DNA, which dictate your lifespan, and it's starting to lengthen the telomeres through these practices. So it's changing your DNA. And even you might have the genetic disposition, say, for an autoimmune disorder, but maybe you're doing all of the practices that are keeping your whole body more regulated, less stress, and so that particular gene doesn't get activated.
are you from genetics background? You know so
No.
much about this.
I just like to I'm very
Uh,
always interested when science starts to prove
uh,
these these religious kind of
mm,
understandings of the world, or these spiritual understandings of the world, and it's happening more and more and more because I mean, there's a reason why all of the spiritual traditions have a similar kind of idea about things, even if they describe it in different ways.
yes, that's true. So, what do you find is similar between these three religions?
Mm.
Christianity, Buddhism, and Hinduism.
Hmm. I mean, there's so much that's similar, but
Because when you think of these religions, we can think of differences. Of course, there are many similarities between Hinduism and Buddhism, but Christianity it stands out, right?
I
Yes.
think
Mm,
probably what I would say maybe is the most obvious similarity in terms of like doctrine.
okay.
And when I'm thinking of Hinduism, I mean, Hinduism is also kind of its own problematic category because it's so vast, right?
Yeah.
So how about we just say like yoga, because
Yeah.
that's more my area of expertise. Um, but I think between Buddhism, yoga philosophy, and Christian philosophy or Christian doctrine, for me, if you really go to the text and you go to the essence of the teachings, I think at the very foundation of all of them is ahimsa, is non-violence,
Nice.
non-harming.
Wow. Oh, it's nice. That's
So
true.
I
That's true.
I think
Mm.
that's probably the what all of them have. Which what is non-violence? It's compassion, it's empathy, it's love, unconditional love,
Mm.
right? Which is potentially, in my perspective, God. I mean, that's the essence of it. So
But
when we
also,
yeah,
it has violence in them. Religious
yeah,
scriptures, be it Srimad Bhagavad Gita, where
yeah,
Krishna asks Arjuna to kill his enemies, although they are his own blood relatives. And
mm-hmm.
in Old Testament of Bible, it's filled with murder stories. So it's a total contradiction, right?
Yeah, 100%.
Yeah. At one point they're preaching peace, at one point they're preaching killing. How can both coexist?
I mean, I think that's sort of the
Mm,
beauty of these texts is that if you
mm,
get into the particulars, just like life, if you get
mm,
into the particulars
mm,
of a person or a situation, it's it can be conflict, it can be violent, it can be right because we're dealing with egos and we're dealing with particulars, you
yeah,
know, like individuals. But when you take that expansive view, then it becomes holistic and more, loving and nonviolent. And I think also there's a progression in these things as well. Even Krishna is telling Arjuna to fight because of his karma, because of his dharma, because of who he is in the world, because that this is going to happen whether he fights or doesn't fight. So, show up and be a person of character, of authenticity, who you are, do your duty in this situation.
mm,
Not because you need to fight, but because the fight is going to happen whether you fight or you don't fight, which to me seems like the essence of the Gita. Is like we can look at life and be like, I don't want to partake of any of this stuff, but it's going to happen whether we engage or don't engage.
yeah.
So then it's like, how are we engaging? What's our intention behind that? And that's where Krishna starts talking about, he says, I am in the heart of all beings, and all beings are in my heart. I mean, the essence of the Gita is love. Yeah.
That's
If
true.
you kill these people, these relatives of yours on the battlefield, they're going to go to heaven. They're going to have a great death because they're dying doing their dharma.
The same thing is preached in Quran as well. It's your duty to fight. So it's nothing
Yeah.
but Srimad Bhagavad Gita, but in a totally different way. But
Yeah, but what do you think
story,
about it? What do you think all this fighting's for?
okay. No, I have no idea on my own, but since I said I go to God Shiva for everything,
Yeah.
uh, so it's not about faith or belief.
Hmm.
Uh, I know it's hard for you to even believe that God is here in earth, not everywhere. No, he has
Yeah.
come as mentioned in Bible.
Yeah.
God comes in the end, but they think it is going to be Jesus, but it's not Jesus. It's not
Yeah.
Sri Krishna because they are bodily beings. They have their own body. So
Hmm.
if they take a body, they have to leave the body, which means they have to die. That's nature.
Hmm.
Nobody can conquer that. But God doesn't enter birth and death. It is mentioned in Gita. But we think it was said by Sri Krishna, which God says is wrong. It's the actual verse of God Shiva. And when does he speak? He speaks directly to everybody, not to Jesus says, he speaks to me. Moses says, he speaks to me. God says, I speak to everybody. Whoever wants to
Yeah.
listen, they can come and listen. So God says about this 5,000 year time cycle. You must have
Hmm.
heard about this kalpa, right? Satyug, Tretayug, Dwapar Kali Yug. But the only,
Yeah, that's our
but
terrible time now, Kali Yuga.
Kali Yuga, yeah. But there's a big difference between what is mentioned in the scripture and what God Shiva says directly. This is just a 5,000 year time cycle, as opposed to lakhs of years as mentioned in scripture. The first half was heaven. This same earth we live in was heaven in the beginning.
Hmm.
And
Hmm.
the second half of this kalpa is hell. And we
Hmm.
are just last 100 years before the destruction of this world, God comes in every kalpa to give what happened in these 5,000 years. God says, I created this world as heaven, not as hell as you see now. You have converted into hell. The reason, actually, the name itself suggests how rich it would be. So we would be living in palaces made of golden bricks. Just think how wealthy we would be. So that's how we were in the beginning. So after taking several rebirths for the first 2,500 years, we
Hmm.
slowly become poisonous. Our mind get corrupted.
Hmm.
While in heaven, we were as pure as newborn babies. No matter how old they are, they don't know what lust is, what anger is, what greed is, what attachment or ego is.
Hmm.
The heaven was completely free of these five vices. So it is in heaven, Krishna, Rama, Sita, Lakshmana, they all resided. They were the residents of heaven. Because they were pure, they were worshipped by Hindus as deities. They are also humans, but they were filled with divine qualities as opposed to devilish qualities that we possess in the form of these five vices.
Hmm.
So you might wonder if there is no lust, how childbirth happens. God says, when husband and wife have the thought of having a baby, the wife gets pregnant. That's the
Hmm.
power of the thought of the pure soul. So
Hmm.
everybody in heaven takes birth by the power of thought. That's why in Hinduism we would often confront situations where childbirth happens by mantra or by
Hmm.
consuming some divine liquid,
Hmm.
but not through physical intimacy.
Hmm.
So that's how we were in the beginning. But they were
Hmm.
so beautiful, very beautiful. Krishna was the most beautiful being, and his life partner Sri Lakshmi is the most beautiful woman ever lived
Hmm.
in this planet. But still, nobody gets disturbed by their beauty. Everybody would be
Hmm.
beautiful, but no, it didn't create any disturbance in anybody's mind. Not even a trace of lust happens in anybody's mind because they were not body conscious. They were soul
Hmm.
conscious. Soul
Hmm.
is the life energy that shines like a tiny star in between the eyebrows, which is why Hindus apply tilak here. But they don't know that. Only God
Hmm.
reveals that. They were soul conscious, when,
Hmm.
which means we know that it is the soul that sees through the eyes, that speaks through the mouth, listens through the ear. When the soul leaves the body, although you have eyes, it won't see. Although you have mouth,
Hmm.
it won't speak. So it is the soul that does everything. So
Hmm.
after leaving that body after certain age, it will take another body through mother's womb. So
Hmm.
it enters the mother's womb when the womb is around 4 or 5 months old. That's when it enters. That's when mother feels the movement of the womb. Till then, it was just a body without life.
Mhm.
So even if it gets what is that called?
Like an abortion.
Aborted. Yeah,
Hmm.
that's not a sin because there's
Yeah.
no life there. That's why
Right.
even governments allow abortion in many countries for first
Hmm.
few months, 3 or
Yeah.
4 months. That's it. After
Yeah.
that, it is considered crime.
Right.
So after first 2,500 years, what
Hmm.
happens is our soul gradually loses power to the
Hmm.
extent that we can no longer concentrate on the soul.
Hmm.
So when we were soul conscious, we were constantly blissful because that's the true nature of soul. So when we can no longer concentrate on the soul, our mind gets distracted by the external things. So we seek pleasure outside, but
Hmm.
that is never going to be permanent. That's always temporary. That's going to last for very
Hmm.
short term pleasures. So thereby we get addicted to these five vices: lust, anger,
Hmm.
greed, attachment, and ego. These vices were not present in heaven because we were so content and happy because of soul conscious. It is
Hmm.
so we were at peace all the time. The reason I start conversation by saying Om Shanti means Om means I am a soul. Shanti means
Hmm.
it's peace. True nature of
Hmm.
soul is peace. So
Hmm.
in the next 2,500 years, we become body conscious. We seek
Yeah.
pleasure from outside, and the highest pleasure that one can experience through sense is lust. So that's
Hmm.
God says it is the number one enemy. In Bhagavad
Hmm.
Gita, there are 3 chapters saying about the ill effects of lust.
Hmm.
So that's the height of body consciousness.
Hmm.
So when you are able to conquer lust, you will be given back heaven that you have lost. So that's the story of all religions.
Hmm.
Once you know this,
Yeah.
for that, what we need to do is to consider ourselves to be soul again, but we don't have the
Hmm.
power of concentration. So we need to connect our mind with God. He is
Hmm.
also a soul just like us. That's why he is called Supreme Soul, Param Atma. Soul
Hmm.
means
Hmm.
Atma in Hindi. Paramatma means the Supreme Soul. Not
Hmm.
supreme in size, but only in quality. He is also
Hmm.
as tiny as soul. Soul is the tiniest thing in the world that you can't see it using even the highest hi-fi scientific equipment. That's why nobody can do research on soul because they can't see it
Yeah.
in the first place. But everybody knows
Yeah.
there is soul for this body to function. Like
Hmm.
the only difference between God Shiva and we souls is we enter birth and death cycle. We enter mother's womb and take a separate body on our own.
Hmm.
But God doesn't enter a mother's womb. That's the reason nobody has ever seen God. But nonetheless, only He has this secret of this 5,000 year time cycle. So He had
Hmm.
to come to give because He
Hmm.
can't give knowledge right there because there is no mouth to speak. There are no ears to listen. We would be just soul without any consciousness. It's like coma stage there.
Yeah.
So God Himself has to descend. He enters an old man's body and he names him Brahma and starts giving this knowledge. This
Hmm.
happens at the end of each kalpa, which is why Christians have the faith of second coming of Jesus. Hindus have the
Hmm.
faith of Kalki Avatar. But that time was over. Sri Krishna was the first baby of heaven. Christ,
Hmm.
he comes in hell just before the establishment of Christianity. So obviously
Hmm.
they would be taking rebirth. They wouldn't go anywhere, but they would forget about themselves in the very next birth.
Yeah.
So even Jesus Christ, he will be in church praying to Jesus. Krishna would be in Hindu temple calling out Krishna without even realizing that he was Krishna. So somebody
Yeah.
has to say us that we were originally deities. But none
Mm.
of us know this. So only God knows this. That's why he comes and says, you were the deities of heaven. This India was heaven, especially the parts on the banks of River Yamuna in Delhi. That would be heaven.
Yeah.
So all the rest of the world would be under sea for the first 2500 years. Only later the earth emerges outside the sea. Then all religions come into being only in hell, not in heaven. In heaven, there
Mm.
would be no religion. They won't worship God because
Mm.
whoever we believe to be God, they exist in living form there, except God Shiva. God Shiva doesn't enter heaven because he
No.
doesn't take birth. So that's why in
Right.
Srimad Bhagavad Gita, it is mentioned, although I create happiness and sorrow, I stay away from both. That is, he is
Mm.
here, the supreme abode. So now it's time all souls should leave this planet Earth because the world is going to get destroyed. Because destruction is the means of world renewal back into heaven. So till
Mm-hmm.
that time, all souls has to live to where it came from. That this is the home of souls. So
Mm-hmm.
whoever becomes eligible to take birth in heaven by becoming pure, they
Mm-hmm.
could take birth in heaven. All the rest, they would stay there till it becomes hell. So
Ooh.
yeah, they have that's the punishment. That's the punishment. They would be there only when it becomes hell. For example, if it is a Christian soul, they wouldn't accept this knowledge, right? If it's
Ah,
a strong
yes.
Christian soul, they wouldn't accept this knowledge. So it's like an inverted tree, right? This is mentioned
Mm-hmm.
in Srimad Bhagavad Gita. I am the
Mm-hmm.
seed of the inverted tree. That's
Mm.
here. So
Ah.
he is the seed. So
Yep.
it's the root. That is Brahma Kumaris. That is we.
Mm.
Uh,
Yeah.
God gives this knowledge through an old man. He names him Brahma. And
Mm-hmm.
those who listen to God's knowledge through Brahma, they also become sons and daughters of Brahma, which is why we are called Brahma Kumars and Kumaris, which means sons and daughters of Brahma. This Brahma, sorry, he's an old man here. That Brahma is called Adam in Bible and Quran because
Right.
according to them, he is the first man. But
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
obviously, there were absolutely no time when there were no man in earth. It is this time cycle has no beginning, no end. But instead, we consider God to have no beginning or no end. Obviously, He is eternal, but He is not. He is not omnipresent. He is there
No.
because
Yeah.
if we say God is omnipresent, it means even rapist has God inside him. So it
Mm-hmm.
makes God commit that rape, which is defamation for God, right? Even thieves. That's the actual meaning. If God is everywhere, it means God is within you and me.
Yeah,
I know
but
you
we
want
can we
to.
can
Mm,
separate our awareness, and also
mm,
God isn't necessarily
mm.
acting. God isn't causing the action.
Yeah, so God is causing the rape.
No, God isn't causing the action.
Then because
But if God is all
mm,
seeing,
if God is
God
loving,
sees all things.
no, he is not seeing everything. He resides there peacefully. Only he
Yeah.
comes in the last 100 years. That's why the world has become like that. If he is here, it wouldn't be like that. And also, there is a myth that God
Yeah.
can do everything. God says, I can't do everything. My only thing is to teach you and make you into angels again,
Mm,
converting hell into heaven again, which is the great
yeah.
task. This is the biggest
Yeah.
miracle. God doesn't do simple miracle like as mentioned in Bible, Jesus distributed fish to thousands of people. That's not the kind
Mm-hmm.
of miracle God does. God doesn't
Mm.
come in installment basis. God doesn't come in every yug. as mentioned in Hinduism. He comes
Mm.
only once. He is very smart. He doesn't waste time. When he comes, it earth has no choice but to be converted to heaven. If
Mm.
Sri Krishna has come, or if God has come in Sri Krishna and gave Bhagavad Gita, so they believe Gita was given in this yuga called Dwapar Yuga.
Mhm.
If it happened,
Mhm.
it wouldn't be Kali Yuga after that, it would be Satyug. It would be heaven, right?
Mm.
But instead, what happened? After the arrival of Jesus Christ, the world becomes more worse. After the arrival of Krishna, the world becomes more worse. So that itself
Yeah.
should prove they have nothing with God. So God
Ah.
comes only now and he gives this knowledge
Yeah.
now. So the essence of this knowledge is to consider ourselves to be souls and to
Mhm.
remember God as a point of light as lovingly as our own Father. So Jesus
Mhm.
is not God, but Jesus calls God as his Father.
Mhm.
That is God Shiv. That is
Mhm.
Allah. Allah, God Shiv, and Heavenly Godfather. These three names represent the same God. But
Mhm.
all the rest, either they would be the religious founders like Jesus Christ and Muhammad, or
Mhm.
they would be the deities of heaven. So it is
Mm.
as souls, after taking this knowledge and practicing soul conscious, that we become eligible to enter heaven. That doesn't make us God. He makes us pure like himself. We can
Yeah.
become pure like God, but we can't
Yeah.
become God because I can't become you, you can't become me.
Yeah.
Right? Souls,
Right.
they are imperishable. But
Mhm.
Hinduism, they believe that we merge with God. That doesn't
Mhm.
happen. Even God
No.
has to come. Yeah, no. Because whatever I say, it's not in any scripture. God
Yeah.
Himself comes and teaches through Brahma Kumaris. Have you heard of
Mm.
it? It is there in America as
I
well.
have heard. Yes, I've
Yes.
heard of Brahma
So
Kumaris.
that is run directly by God. Because they have no mention of God Shiva, you might
Yeah.
think this is something else. But it is
Yeah.
there.
They don't mention God Shiva.
Yeah, it is mentioned because the actual name is Brahma Kumaris Ishwariya Vishwavidyalaya in Hindi.
Ah. Yes.
So
Okay.
yeah, so it is a family actually. We are
Yeah.
sons and daughters of God,
Yeah.
and the Father is, as he is invisible, so he puts his name in the end and puts his son Brahma at the front. So that's
Mhm.
what God says. God shows his son first, and it is son's duty to reveal the Father. That's what we are doing. We are busy doing that. So,
Yeah.
what happens by being soul conscious and looking at each other as soul? It takes time and effort. So, when we see the most beautiful man or women, if it is possible for us to focus only on the soul instead of the face or body, we
Mhm.
can conquer lust. But that
Yeah.
takes time. That takes time. But also by remembering God as much as possible as a point of light, our
Mhm.
souls get filled with the power of purity. Because
Mhm.
they say God is called the Almighty. The reason is
Mhm.
He is filled with all mights all the time. But we also will be powerful in the beginning, but as time passes, our power decreases. But God,
Mm.
His power is like sun, always bright. It doesn't diminish. But we, on the
Yeah.
other hand, we are not like that. In the beginning, we are pure. In the end, we are absolutely impure. Like, what is that? No moon day. So, God makes us into a full moon.
Yeah.
So, that's why in Hinduism, full moon day and no moon day, they are considered auspicious. Without knowing the reason behind that, they are following that.
Mm.
That's called devotion. But in
Mhm.
knowledge, we know the reason. So here
Mm.
we know God, He is speaking through an old man's body that is called Murli. which is available absolutely free of cost in all Brahmakumari's Rajyog meditation centers. The essence of that knowledge
Beautiful.
is just we have to consider God to be a point of light, and also we have to consider ourselves to be a point of light. So we have
Mm.
to consider ourselves dead to this old world, because anyway this is going to be destroyed, this world.
Mm-hmm.
So
Yeah.
when you are able to detach yourself from all your blood relatives and other relatives, only then at the time of destruction of the world you won't get hurt. Or else when you see your beloved family members die in front of you, obviously
Mm-hmm.
you will be in pain. God doesn't want his sons and daughters to experience pain anymore, because we have been suffering for the past 2500 years. God has
Yeah.
come to rescue us, to liberate us.
Mm.
That's why he is called the liberator. Now, after knowing this knowledge, if you see Islam, Christianity, Hinduism, you know the similarity. See,
Yeah.
in Ramayana, uh, you know about Ramayana, right? Ramayana.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, I know.
Ram was thrown out of his kingdom
Mm-hmm.
unjustifiably just before
Mm-hmm.
the day of his coronation.
Yeah.
But he accepts it gladly. He goes to the forest, which means he detached himself from the attachment to the throne. Then,
Mm-hmm.
after that, he fights with Ravan. Ravan kidnaps his wife.
Yeah.
So, it doesn't mean there is 10-headed person called Ravan. You know, Ravan has 10 heads.
Yeah.
You heard of it,
I,
right?
yeah, I've heard of Ravana. Yeah.
Yeah, but in reality, it did not happen like that. Nothing, whether it is Bible or Quran or Ramayana or Mahabharata, they
Yeah.
did not happen as
Yeah.
such. They
Mm-hmm.
happen. They just depict what's happening inside our mind at the time we receive God's knowledge. So Ravan is
Mm.
nothing but lust, anger, greed, attachment, and ego. It is present both in men and women. They are combinedly called ten-headed Ravan. It is within
Ah.
us. We are kidnapped. We souls are Sitas kidnapped by Ravan. The whole world is the kingdom of Ravan now. God has come to save us Sitas from the prison of Ravan. How do we
Mm.
escape it? Just consider yourself to be soul. Only if you consider yourself to be the body, lust emerges, anger emerges, attachment emerges,
Mm-hmm.
greed, ego emerges. If you have no
Mm-hmm.
body, what is there to be egoistic about?
Yeah.
Nothing.
It's true.
Yeah. And also, the soul is the embodiment of peace and love. That's the
Yeah.
true nature. So, if I see each other as soul, I don't
Mm-hmm.
see, you don't see the nationality, religion, color,
Mm-hmm.
creed, nothing.
Mm-hmm.
So, you know that you are speaking with your soul brother, who is also the son of God Shiva. So the only
Yeah.
relationship that is possible between human beings now is just brothers. No other relationship. Not even
Yeah.
sister. Because male and female happens only with the body, not with the soul.
Mm. Yeah.
So since everybody has the right
Maybe
to
the only relationship though is sister, not brother.
what?
Maybe the only relationship is sister, not brother.
Oh, you do. Okay, you want to be a feminist now. Yeah, no, there is a reason. God says in olden days,
Mm-hmm.
only male child inherits the property, right?
Mm-hmm. But the property is nothing, is not real.
Yeah, that's true. But in
And
olden
even
days,
the male is not real. You just said male is not real either.
yeah, that's true. But the reason God says is to consider everybody as brother, because even brother and sister relationship cheats. Even they fall into lust. That's why to escape, to save us from Ravan, from lust,
Yeah.
God gives this technique of
Uh-huh.
considering each other as soul brother. So
Okay.
when I see
I
your,
feel like soul sister would be better though still. I
yeah,
feel
you
like
could,
women fall into
oh,
lust a lot less than men.
lot less than men.
Yeah, I think lust
Wow.
is a particularly male vice more than
Wow.
women.
That's true. That's true. That's true. That's true. You know why?
So I think we need to say
But
soul
but
sister, not
but but
soul
but
soul
also
brother.
but also some women are more lustful than men.
Yeah, I
Yeah.
mean, there's all kinds, all
Yeah.
kinds.
The reason for that is God says, uh, it is not true that as oh my God. And the reason is uh, Hinduism believe that we take birth from initially as plant, then as animals, then slowly into evolved into human being, just like science. But God
Hmm.
says that's not true. Human souls will always take human bodies, but the
Mm.
gender may change. They may be male
Hmm.
in one birth, in the alternate birth, they would be female. There
Hmm.
can't be more than two births where they belong to same gender. They could be female
Huh.
for two births continuously, not more than that. They could be male for two births, not more than that. So that is the reason some girls are more lustful than men. Because it obviously means they were male in their previous birth.
Ah,
That's
you
the
agree
thing.
with me then.
Yeah. And also you can feel that certain male have they are more feminine in nature. They'd be
Yes.
very speaking very softly. They will handle
Yeah.
it very softly. They'll be
Yeah.
interested in cooking than anything.
Yeah.
So we can find that they could be that they are female in their last birth. And also
Yeah.
you can find some girls are more masculine. They'll be
Hmm.
like rowdy gundas.
Yeah.
So then we can be sure that they must be like that in their previous birth.
Uh-huh.
So
But the soul is neither
same,
male nor female.
not female. But the reason, see, if we look at it, we'll be wondering about this drama. God says this is a 5,000 year time cycle that keeps repeating
Hmm.
accurately, which means
Hmm.
5,000 years back on the very same date and time we were having the same discussion. In every kalpa at this point of time, we would be having the same conversation. Just
That's
see how
exciting.
beautiful it is. Yeah, we are not meeting for the first time, sister. We have met um, innumerable number of times. We are going to meet innumerable number of times.
Well, I will look forward to that.
Yeah. So by knowing this knowledge, we would let anything happen to us without trying to stop it. Because even God
Mm.
can't stop this drama. So why waste
Hmm.
time in trying to change others? Because
Yeah.
everybody has their own part in their soul. They will
Hmm.
act accordingly, no matter you like it or not.
Mm.
So if everybody knows this, there won't be any domestic violence. They
Mm.
wouldn't want to dominate others. There won't be depression of any sort because God says, although it's predestined, it will definitely be for good. Whatever happened was good.
Mm.
Whatever is happening is good. Whatever will happen will be better than this. So, what is there to worry? And soul is everlasting. So, if
Hmm.
somebody dies, what's the need to cry? Because it's going to take another body. Somebody is going to celebrate his or her birthday while you
Hmm.
are mourning for their death. So the reason is because of your body consciousness and bodily attachment. That's why God
Uh-huh.
asks us to detach from body consciousness. Once you become soul conscious, you will feel at peace and blissfulness all the time. So that's
Yeah, but how do
why
you become soul conscious is the question.
by practicing, just
Meditation? Chanting?
meditation,
Just focusing the mind? What?
not chanting or anything.
No.
Meditation, true meditation itself is remembering God. Just because we don't know anything about God, we have been following chakras, observing
Hmm.
breath, or
Hmm.
chanting mantras, but nobody knows the meaning of it. Your sins can't be absolved by doing those practices. Only by remembering God who is ever pure that you become pure like Him. So for that you need to understand God, which we get to know through His Murlis. So just think, He has no reason to come because He doesn't benefit anything from us. Because He doesn't take body. He's not going to come to heaven. That's why He is called love. Because our physical father, after enjoying all the wealth, and when he reaches the point he cannot take anything with him, only then he
Yeah.
leaves it to us. But God, on the other hand, he doesn't even enter heaven. He just makes us eligible there and he goes back to where he came from. Such is the love of our Divine Father. But Christians, they don't know. They pray, they even cry without knowing what God does. They believe that story of Jesus to be real. Even if it were real, he didn't do anything for you. As you mentioned, whose sin has he absolved? Someone who lived before him or after him? If it is after
Yeah.
him, has he washed away the sins before you committed it? There are many questions. So there is
There
no
are many
reason to fall
questions.
in love with Jesus because he was very angry initially. Only towards the end he becomes loving. In the beginning, he would even hit others. He would curse a fig tree because he couldn't get fig on time. So that's a humanly nature. So that's what I say.
Yeah.
We become devils. When we have devilish qualities, we are devils. So we are made into divine by God. But we were originally the residents of heaven. Even in Bible and Quran, Adam and Eve were in heaven, but not only two, they represent 33 million people who were there in heaven. They represent, they were Lakshmi and Narayan. Instead, they are called Adam and Eve. so,
Yeah.
once they were thrown out of heaven, God teaches them to get back to heaven. That's the thing. So
Yeah.
that completes this cycle. In Ramayana, he was thrown out of his home and
Yeah.
finally he reaches the throne. How? By proving that he has no attachment towards anything, not towards his wife, not towards his kingdom, not towards his own brother. That's when he's attaining moksha. But there is nothing called moksha. You can never escape rebirth. You have to take rebirth, or else this won't happen again, right? Even God can't escape this. God has to come every 5,000 years once. So that's just the imagination of human.
So we can
So
never get off the wheel.
there is no reason to get off the wheel. You know why?
There
Because
isn't.
because we are living at the worst of time, which is
Yeah.
now. We have
Yeah.
already completed our good times and we have even completed our bad time. So what to worry? Now good time is ahead of us where there is nothing but happiness. We would be living for 150 years without getting our hair gray, without getting bald head, without getting shrinking of skin. We will not even have the trace of any sort of sickness, not even
Yeah.
headache.
Sounds
So,
good.
yeah. And also, you know what, as it is mentioned in Bible and Quran, it is true that lion and goat will take water from the same pond. You know why? Because even they will feed on grass, not on
Yeah.
animals. But when we say this to Christians and Muslims, they accept that it was like that. But now God has changed law. In Quran, God has clearly mentioned, I'm not human to change law like humans daily. God is one, his rule is one. So whatever goes against God's will is sin. So God doesn't come in heaven, but still we will follow the orders of God without even knowing that. Because we carry that sanskar, that character now by imbibing the knowledge of God. It makes us so blissful and peaceful. By listening to Murli daily, you will feel that difference within a month. So
Beautiful.
yeah, because if somebody cheats on us, So when you know it is for good, when you know that you have done something bad in your past life, then you will
Yeah.
be at peace because you are the reason for that. When
Yeah.
we don't find ourselves guilty,
Hmm.
that's when we get angry.
Yeah.
When we don't consider ourselves to be the reason for our
Hmm.
consequences, that's when we
Yeah.
go mad.
Yeah.
But God, in the end, just during the time of destruction, He will show the
Hmm.
vision of what we did in the past. Because
Mm.
compared to the sins we committed, the
Yeah.
punishment will always be lesser.
Mm.
Even if that's intolerable, just think how much sins we would have committed. That's the thing. But anyway, now if you hold on to God by being in remembrance of God all the time, no matter what happens,
Hmm.
you will be
Hmm.
at peace. If somebody shouts at you, you know the same thing. That's the part in his soul.
Hmm.
He's just playing. But anyway, that's by him barking at me, my sin gets decreased. This is the
Mm.
easiest way, right? All I
Yeah.
need to do is to be in remembrance of God, so that
Hmm.
I minimize the words that get into my ears
Yeah.
by bringing my concentration in God. So that
Hmm.
will happen. And by doing that, slowly our karma gets cleansed and we will no longer have any difficulty with humans. But still, things will be there because we have settled all the accounts with other people. Then diseases erupt because it's the matter of 2500 years. We've been sinning for 2500 years. It's not that
Yeah.
easy to clean everything, right? So
Hmm.
some of it will be experienced it through diseases. But still,
Hmm.
if you're totally soul conscious, you wouldn't feel the pain. So this is
Yeah.
the way of escaping from all sorts of sorrow. And that's the reason in heaven we will automatically have soul conscious vision. We would not be focusing on the body. That's why there is no lust. So this is the true divine teachings directly by God Shiva, not through any scriptures. God is only one. He comes only once. His knowledge is only one. That is the only way to enter heaven. This world itself is heaven. That's the reason. It is because you are a deity soul, you are attracted to Hinduism, although you were born in a Christian country. Just think the miracle,
I'll take
right?
that.
Yeah, that's the thing. Or else you wouldn't get this knowledge this quick. Of course,
Yeah.
everybody would get this knowledge eventually at the end, but you have got
Mhm.
it earlier, which
Yeah.
means that's the reason I'm targeting yoga teacher like that
Mm.
to pass this knowledge
Yeah.
because only our dharam people will accept this knowledge. Others they
Yeah.
can't understand. Even if you try giving this knowledge to other Christian, other religious people, you would find how they find it so difficult to understand such a simple thing.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's because only if you are a deity, you would love this.
Hmm.
If you are someone who comes only into Christianity, you have never seen the real heaven. So obviously this doesn't make sense.
Yeah.
Yeah,
That's
when
interesting. Hmm.
that's the thing.
Yeah,
So
beautiful. Well,
yeah,
thank you so much. I'm
thank you so
so
much,
pleased that we
sister.
had this
I'm
conversation. It was really
yeah,
lovely to
thank
meet
you
you.
so much for accepting, and we look
Yeah.
forward for several podcasts in the future. Let's see.
Yes. Thank
Okay.
you, brother.
Thank
Very
you so
nice.
much, sister. Om Shanti. Bye, sister.
Om
Goodbye.
Shanti.
Om
Bye.
Shanti, sister.